time.
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. We have 9 attendees so far. We're going to get started shortly in the next 2-3 minutes, just to make sure that everybody who registered has an opportunity to log in and attend the meeting. Again, good evening to everyone. We're giving it one more minute. We have about 22 attendees for our community meeting, and we'll be starting shortly. Fred, we haven't had anybody else join. Would you like to get it started?
Yes.
I will turn it
Good
over to
evening. Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this evening for our virtual community input meeting for the park property, which is located just north of the Venetian Pool, which is now Lamar Louise CurryPark. Before we start, we're going to have a presentation. But before we have that presentation, just to let everyone know, what we're going to be presenting today is a conceptual plan. It's going to have proposed elements. It is by no means a final design. It is the reason why we come to the public for input, and we'll go over kind of what the format is going to be for today's meeting. This is our first public community input parks meeting on Zoom, so bear with us if we have an occasional technical glitch. But Carolina, if you can, before we before we pull up the presentation, I would like to point out we do have several of our city staff that will be here to answer questions and will serve as panelists for this presentation as well. With us is Michael Connor, who is from Calvin, Giordano and Associates, who will be presenting the design. We also have from our city's capital improvements projects team, we have Jose Oliveras, Brandon DeCaro, and Gretel Duran, who will be the project manager for the project. We also have the Landscape Services Director, Brooke Dannemiller. And we also have the Assistant Director, Dina Bell.
Hi.
Is it Dina Lewin Bell or Dina Bell
Llewellyn?
Bell Llewellyn. There it is.
Dina Bell works.
Yes, great. We also have Hermes Diaz, who is the Public Works Director. And from the Community Recreation team, I'm Fred Crucero. I'm the Community Recreation Director. Carolina, who was the first one to speak during the meeting, she is the Assistant Director of Community Recreation.
Welcome.
And we also have the Administrative Supervisor, Mitch Zerarian, who is our liaison with capital improvements and heads the projects from the community recreation side of things. And last but not least, as the city seal is Sarah Espino, who is the recorder and having the official minutes for this meeting. So now that we got that out of the way, Carolina, if you can pull up the presentation, we'll get started. So as we said, this is the community input presentation. Just to tell you a little bit of how the procedure will go. This meeting is going to be recorded and it will serve as the meeting minutes, and we're gonna also share it on the city webpage so it is accessible for anyone who would like to know what was discussed and how the meeting went. The way that we're gonna get our community input is we will have our presentation. There is a Q&A chat function that is on the meeting. You can ask your questions through that function. At the end of the presentation, we will read all the questions and everyone on the panel will answer according to whoever's responsibility, whoever has the most knowledge of that question. Our hope is to get as many questions answered, to kind of look at all the different concerns, all the different inquiries, and by using the Q&A chat, we'll be able to do the presentation, and when the presentation's over, we'll be able to address any of the questions and comments that will follow. Just to give you another point of information, we wanted to make sure that, especially because we're challenged during these times in COVID, that we made sure that community input is widely disseminated in terms of the publicity for it. So we wanted to make sure that there was, we handed out door hangers, 1,000 feet of the property. We had it in a newspaper ad. We used all of our social media accounts. We used Coral Gables television, and we also used our public notices and our city e-news to make sure that everyone was aware of the virtual community meeting, and also to provide, we're providing a window that allows for community input beyond just this meeting. You can look at all the information through our website. You can give us community input all the way up through the end of the month. It just doesn't have to be today. So we will be taking all the information, we will be consolidating, we'll be looking at it as we go through. Nothing that is said, you know, if it's not said today, doesn't necessarily mean that you can't provide comments up until the end of the month. So just to start with how we got here, we've had two resolutions that were passed that pertain to this property. One was a resolution that named the property Lamar Louise CurryPark, and that was in partnership with another resolution which authorized, you know, the acceptance of a donation of $200,000 from the Coral Gables Garden Club, and this was on behalf of the Lamar Louise Curry Trust, and it's for the design and construction of this park. Now, the agreement that was made between the Coral Gables Garden Club and the City of Coral Gables stipulates that the funds guarantees the name of the park for 25 years and that the improvements to the park be completed by the end of 2021. There are additional funds that will be required to complete the project, and those will be funded by the City of Coral Gables. So what we have here now is a Google satellite view of the park. It's triangular in shape. You can see the Venetian pool to the south. That's that green water surface color that you see there. On the park property, you will see that there's already a paved sidewalk on the south end. There are some trees on the eastern border and another tree along the sidewalk near the western edge of the park. What'll follow here is a few of the street views. As you see, there is a temporary bench, an art bench piece that will not remain in the park, but it will remain in the vicinity of Venetian Pool. We're looking at different areas that we will look at as possible locations for that bench. So it will be in one of the public right-of-way areas around the pool. Here is an east view. And here are the two existing Park Street views of the park space. So here is what our revised rendered concept site plan looks as of right now. It is by no means, as I said, final. It is something that we're going to run through today. At this point, I will turn over for a more in-depth description of the site plan and the design to Michael, who designed the park, and he will take it from here.
Thanks, Fred. Again, my name is Mike Connor. I'm Senior Landscape Architect with Calvin Giordano and Associates, and we've been contracted by the city to develop the plans for this park and see it through to construction. Starting, just some overall comments at first about the proposed concept plan. There is an existing sidewalk on the south side along Almeria already. We're adding a new sidewalk, public sidewalk outside of the park space, if you will, along DeSoto Boulevard, and that'll connect at the northeast end with a crosswalk and a sidewalk connection to continue going north and east on DeSoto. We have similar to a lot of the more recent parks that the city's developed, there is a 48-inch high aluminum picket fence that goes around the the park itself, with oolite columns at the gates. The main gate and entrance into the park will be at the southwest corner, where it is directly across from the crosswalk leading from the Venetian Pool. It'll have an arbor trellis and oolite column kind of feature at the main entry gates coming in. The pathway through the park is a rubberized surface similar to some of the more recent parks that have been done. As you first come in, there is a little Japanese style bridge feature, if you will, that goes over a dry riverbed or rock garden. The purpose of this feature is to accommodate the need for the emptying of the pool water once a week during the summer months, and they have to have an outlet for that, which is usually just on the grass now. So what this will do is it'll become a wet feature once a week, allow that water to come out and drain and be filtered. You'll see two little gates on either side, north and south of the rock garden. Those are just maintenance gates, just to allow the staff to get in and keep it clean and change the filter and that sort of thing, and to pull the hose through when it's time to empty that water each week. Moving on from the little bridge, there's a regular park metal bench, ADA feature under a shade tree, and then moving forward from there is a flagstone little plaza area with the first of two oolite planter boxes, and those are a feature for the garden club members to use to plant. You see the larger one along DeSoto It's a little bit larger feature there with 2 benches. And that, I also want to mention too, at the arbor trellis entryway, there will be a plaque for the name of the park and a dedication plaque there somewhere in that location. Moving through the park to the southeast corner, there is a first of 2 seating areas. These are under the existing coconut palms. There will be oolite sand, little play area, seating area there for family or somebody to gather at. And as you move further along the path, there's a second seating area, and then a little bit of a sand area for play underneath 2 sea grape trees that will remain and provide plenty of shade there. And again, that will be the secondary entrance going out to the sidewalk on DeSoto. The other gates that you see there to the left are the main maintenance access gates for the city park staff to come in and mow the grass and maintain the plants and the park features. Next to that is a rectangular square there. You'll see 2 of those on the plan, one at the top and one at the very bottom along Almeria. Those are the vaults that currently exist that house the injection wells, in which they empty the water of the water in the pool once a week. They pump it down into the aquifer and let it recharge, and then fill the pool back up with fresh spring water. Those 2 items have to stay, and they have to be accessible. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. The rest of it is just landscaping of new flowering trees and palms and flowering shrubs and ground covers to make it as aesthetically pleasing and as deserving of the Gardens Club wishes as possible. Some of the features that we talked about, you see here is the arbor trellis with oolite column entry gates, the perimeter fencing, very similar to the rest of the parks in the city, the rubberized path, oolite type of benches, as well as regular metal benches and trash cans. There's a little bridge feature, again, mentioned. We'll have a little bit of a piece of railing there, not very big at all, but just to kind of give you the feel of going over a little stream bed. The rock garden itself will probably be more of a black river rock type of feature and look a little bit nicer than that. Just was unable to find a good photograph of it for this presentation, but it'll look colorful and decorative even when dry. And then the oolite planter boxes you see. I think then I turn it back over to Fred.
Yeah, so as Michael stated, some of the features that are in the concept are the main entrance trellis, the Japanese garden style pedestrian bridge, the rubber walkway, the oolite planting beds for the seasonal flower plantings, and the crushed oolite sand areas, and also the rock garden, which allows for water drainage. And then, of course, in the middle, there's that open lawn area, so it still provides a recreational space that is kind of a free play type area, or a free lounge, or a free sit type area that park users can use. Some of the other park improvements, the 4-foot aluminum picket fence with the oolite columns, it is our standard at a lot of our parks that we have, especially the ones that we have built recently. You know, it brings that natural element of the oolite columns with the aluminum picket that's needed for safety. We did talk about the additional concrete sidewalk and the entrances, the pathway. We need to make sure that we have access and it's ADA compliant. One of the things that we will look at having is a pedestrian crosswalk on the Toledo side, to have proper access to the park. We will do a refrigerated drinking fountain. It does get hot in the summer if anyone's there at the park. And we will have a dog waste station. It won't be in the park. The park will not be a dog park, but we will have a waste station on the perimeter on the outside, most likely. So as people that are walking by, if they need the bags or they need to use the receptacle, they can. similar to the to the process that we've used for other of our smaller parks. Now, to talk more about the landscaping and the tree selection and all the plantings, I'm going to turn it over now to Brooke and Dina from the Landscape Services Division, and they can explain a little bit more as to all of the different plantings and tree selection designs and rationales for this park. Go ahead, Dina and Brooke.
Dina, I was gonna let you go through the planting palette. I think she looks frozen. Okay. All right, well, I'll get started until Dina comes back on. So one of the requirements for this park for the garden club, it was part of the naming, was Miss Lamar Louise Curry wanted the donation to go towards flowering plants and flowering trees. So we have a diverse palette that we work closely with the garden club on to develop with a number of flowering trees, flowering shrubs, flowering ground covers. And you can see here there's a variety of colors, and we're trying to make as many, if not most of the plants to be flowering. Next slide. Here's a list of the proposed tree selection. Red orchid tree, Bearwood, dwarf lang-lang, which has a very fragrant flower, white geiger tree, Florida hydrangea, mandarin hat, pink jatropha, lance pod, frangipani bridal bouquet, which is a white flower, red frangipani, which is fun to say, Milky Way tree, teddy bear palm, triple Montgomery palm. So these aren't set, but we work closely with the garden club, and as we do to the design, we'll tweak it depending on shade and sun requirements. This is just a general layout of where we have palms in a semicircle along DeSoto Boulevard. We have raised planter beds that the oolite wall around the edge, and then there's planting soil within them. The garden club wanted those raised so that they could stand and do the plantings and not have to kneel or bend over. It also raises them up higher so they're more at eye level. Next slide. And this is just kind of a rendering, black and white rendering, showing the layout. We've got some ferns in the right of way. We're taking the plantings all the way to the street edge and trying to make it as lush and colorful and usable as possible. And this is a good space for when parents and children are waiting for swim lessons or waiting to get picked up outside the Venetian pool, where they can go enjoy the flowering plants and have a place for younger kids who can't get into the pool to run around, and try to have flowering seasonal color all year round and staggering different flowering plants flower at different times. So trying to have a variety so that at any given time there's something in bloom in the park. Next.
So this is the park once again. Thank you, Brooke. Showing all of the elements. As you can see, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to the landscaping. It's going to be, as Brooke said, the tree selection. There are some features. Please, in the Q&A chat box, if there's a particular features that you feel strongly about, either way, positive or negative, please let us know. That's what this is for, to gather your input. If you're happy with design, great, let us know. If you're not, let us know what the issues are and what we can look at to address. Because as I said, this is not a finalized design. So where we are right now, the estimated project cost is $300,000. The funding sources include $200,000 from the Lamar Louise Curry Trust, and as I previously said, we're gonna look at the rest of it from the city's capital improvements budget. What we've done is we've looked at this proposed design. We're reviewing it with the public today. This morning, I shared it with the Parks Advisory Board, and you know we've gone through and we're going to get the input throughout the month. And then once we look at all the changes that need to be made, that's when we will look at the budgeting to make sure that any changes, real-time budgets are taken into account. That's why this is a concept. There may be a feature or two that for cost engineering reasons or for community input reason, there could be 5 or 6. It doesn't really, we won't know until the end of the input. So there could be some changes, there could be some exclusions, but there are certain things in there that will stay, such as the perimeter fencing, you know, the rubberized walkway, some of the accessibility stuff has to stay in, and some of the requests from the garden club, such as the raised planters were very important to the garden club. So those are a couple of the things that will stay in the design. Once we go through a more completed design, then the next step becomes final plans and those plan reviews, and then permitting, and then we go through a procurement process to find a contractor, and then demo and construction. We're hoping for estimated completion December of 2021. So before we go into the question and answer session, one thing that's very important, right here, you see our email, which is parksprojects@coralgables.com. If there is anything in this plan that you would like to see, like some of the more detailed site plan ones that maybe might be hard to focus on your screen, please email us and we'll send it to you. We do have a few of the plans on our website, but there's some that we can't post on the website because of the intricacies of it, and making sure that it's accessible. So if you need to see those, we can definitely send them to you. The email is right there. So we are more than happy to give you all the information you need. So at this point, you know, I see we've already got 12 questions lined up. So that's great. We'll start. Please, if you have more questions, more comments, please put them into the record so we can read them out and we can have the panelists answer. Sarah, can you start with the first question?
So some of the comments we're getting now is if the park is going to be animal friendly, and if not, are they going to have proper signage posted within the park or outside the park?
So I don't anticipate this being a dog-friendly park, of having dogs inside. We'll have the dog waste station outside of it. We will look at how we will address rule signage. I don't want to have a big, gigantic sign there, or, you know, for the aesthetic of it. I don't think it lends itself to that space. But we will look at a signage that kind of gives, you know, the use of the park. And if it might actually be a sign on the dog waste station near the entrance, you know, that says, you know, dogs, you know, not permitted in the park, that kind of thing. But we will look at some sort of signage that gives the rules of the park rules.
Okay.
Sarah, next question.
So
Another question. Oh, sorry, Carolina, continue.
Another question that came up was about the Oolite benches. The person asked about, they look uncomfortable, any provisions for regular park benches?
Okay, so yes, there are in the design over a lot on the eastern side, on 2 of the different Oolite areas, there was the traditional park bench that we have in our parks, which will be the recycled plastic type with the chair back and with arms on both sides and a divider in the middle also. And we might have the opportunity to have some of our memorial benches, which are that type as well, that have plaques to it. We're not sure yet what we'll do that. We do that in a partnership with the Coral Gables Foundation. So we'll see if there's an ability to do that there. If not, we'll do our traditional park bench, which is a slatted, has a wood look, but it's a little bit more environmentally friendly and has the metal borders and arms. The Oolite ones they're not meant for a 3-hour stay. They're meant for a quick stop. And you know, we do have them in a lot of different parks, but they're usually not the only seating And most of those, they're just accent pieces to provide a little bit more seating in other areas to complement the benches.
So, and going back to the dogs, we have two comments. One asked for please no dogs. Another comment was it would be amazing to have a small section for dogs. So some opposing opinions on the dogs provision.
Right. The problem with a park of this size, it's very small, so it's very difficult to have a split plan to provide an area for dogs, which is why we weren't able to accommodate that in this type of space. So, you know, we don't really have the ability. As you saw the design, there's, you know, although it may look really big in the picture, if you go to the space, you'll realize that there isn't a lot of space to begin with. It's not an expansive park design. So that's why we didn't choose to have dogs. But if, you know.
Next, this reads, that is exactly what I was questioning. I'm not sure what that refers to. It then proceeds to say how the overflow was going to be addressed. So happy to see it is a very well thought out plan.
I think that's talking about the drainage. It must be someone who's familiar with the pool and knows that water gets emptied into that park, because what people might not realize is that that's what that space was there for, as kind of a holding area for that water. And having that design of that riverbed, that dry riverbed, gives us that feature and that ability to do that.
Next, we have a question on some of the stop signs. So Toledo and Almeria corner, where the stop sign from the Venetian pool terminates. Presentation mentions a crosswalk there and along the side of Venetian. The sidewalk currently does not extend the entire length of Venetian pool. Is Venetian pool sidewalk going to be extended?
The sidewalk is going to go along Toledo, DeSoto, on the diagonal, and the existing one on the south side. The one that's on Toledo is going to be on the east side of the street, and those are both existing. So the crosswalk will be on the east side of Toledo and on the north side of the intersection there. And there might be one on the south side too, I don't recall. But we're not proposing adding a sidewalk on the east side of the Venetian pool, where there's a narrow little like 1 or 2 foot grass strip. That'll remain. I don't know if that hopefully that answers the question.
The same individual added to the question of the stop sign area is going to be improved to be more pedestrian friendly and encourage connectivity.
Which stop sign?
So I'm assuming it refers back to the south side of Almeria where the sidewalk extends from the west side of Toledo.
Well, what we're doing on the western edge of the park, on the western entrance, there will be an expanded area, and then the crosswalk will have that pedestrian access. I'm not sure what other street improvements we're going to do other than the north end sidewalk.
Yeah, so I think to clarify, the crosswalk locations will be at Toledo and DeSoto. Then there will be one at, there'll be most likely be 3 at Toledo and Almeria on the north side, the east side, and the south side, because the sidewalk curves around from the little parking area to the east side of the pool and then stops. So there's a stop sign. There's not a stop sign there. So we may or may not be able to put crosswalks. So we'll have to look to see if, you know, all 4 sides of Toledo and Almeria will get crosswalks. We'll have our traffic engineers look at that and coordinate that with the county if needed.
Next question on the vaults. Please confirm the pool vaults are low to the ground, similar to existing.
Yes, the vaults will remain with the same profile, which is, you know, the ground level profile. They won't be raised. That would be a safety issue that we wouldn't want to encounter.
Next, this is not a question, just a commentary. Park is a much welcomed improvement and the design is appropriate for the area. Thank you. Another comment, I like it. The design is great and I really like all the flowering trees, which look like excellent choices. I would like to see a native lignum vitae tree to be part of the final plants. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Lignum vitae.
Lignum, and that could we'll add that to the list of potential plans.
Next question, can landscape medians along the new sidewalk connection be added to the Toledo-Almeria stop sign area to make it more pedestrian friendly? So that's the same person that asked that earlier question. So I believe that is what she meant with pedestrian friendly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can add a median on that road there. We will have to look at our, we'll talk with our traffic people and see what they can recommend there. I know we're limited somewhat by what we can do on that street, but we will find out, and we will post. If you could send us an email to Parks Projects, then we could get you an answer to that.
And most likely that would be a separate project or a separate kind of mini project if we did anything that's kind of outside the park scope.
Yeah, it might be.
Next comment refers back to the dogs. I think it is not nice to exclude dogs. We all meet there with our dogs and they are all well behaved and people pick up after their dogs.
Okay.
And if I'm correct, the dogs on leash can go anywhere in the city. It's just, it won't be an off leash.
Well, that depends. We can, you know, what originally we had looked at not having dogs be in the park. Now, if there's an overriding sentiment to have dogs be able to be in the park on leashes, then we keep the dogway station inside and we allow them on leashes. The only thing that I find with leashes, and it's great that the person who asked the question has seen the neighborhood that's there now following the rules. Just you know, we get feedback not in that particular area, but in other places where we've had developed parks where the rules aren't followed. You know, we just built a couple, and one of the ones that we opened, you know, I was getting quite a few emails every week about people letting their dogs run free because you have a perimeter fence and you have an open area in the middle. So sometimes it is a nice thing for owners to just unleash their dogs and let them run around because, you know, it's gated. And that's what we found in other park areas. You know, that's not to say that would happen here. It's just what we've seen has been the case in other parks that have had perimeter fencing and open areas.
Next question is, what is the size and expected capacity? And then there's a question on local parking.
Okay, so Michael, would you like to opine on the size?
I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head what the square footage was. It is, you know, the triangular space that's left over between in the right of way is very small, probably like a quarter of an acre.
Yeah, I think it's around is it around 13 or so thousand square feet, give or take a little bit.
Yeah, would be like a quarter to a third of an acre.
Yeah. And in terms of Carolina, the size was the first question. What was the second part of that question?
So the capacity, I don't think we normally do set a capacity on parks, but it asked about capacity.
Yeah, we don't. Now, will there be maybe some temporary capacities as we move forward? You know, depending on when the park's completed, if we still have issues that we're dealing with the pandemic like we are now, then yeah, there might be a regulation that'll set up capacities by then. But we really don't know what the situation will be at that point. We don't normally have capacities for outdoor spaces, but we might if the pandemic is still ongoing and there's county orders that have been made for open spaces. So we would adhere to whatever the emergency orders are.
And the last part of the question was about parking.
The lot size is 6,450 square feet, but with the right of way, it's probably closer to
12 or 13.
10,000.
Oh, 8 or 10. So it's less than a quarter. It's much less than 13. Okay. As you can see, that's what I was saying about the park being a little smaller in terms of when we were having the dog question. It's not a very big park. If you're looking at 8,000 square feet, that's not very large at all. So in terms of parking, there is no parking, additional parking that's being created for this space. There's obviously the parking that's to the south of the property, and there's also parking over on over more to the west, which are the Venetian pool parking. I don't know if the question refers to how we're going to manage parking with the pool. If that's the case, Carolina, if you can just give everyone that information real quick.
Yeah, and this will also refer to the second question. The second question also asked about parking. I'll just read it before I answer. During peak times of the pool activity, that space has always been a parking lot for the Venetian pool. Where will those people park? So in the last 2 years, 2 summers, or summertime is the peak time at the Venetian pool where parking does become burdensome to the community around the park and the Venetian pool. And the measures that we've taken over the last few years, we have reduced the capacity. So we are very strict on the capacity to the entry of the pool. Right now it's, reduced 50% reduced capacity of what it used to be. We also have an agreement with our parking enforcement. So when we have peak seasons, spring break time, all the way through summertime, we have parking enforcement on the heavy peak times, and they are very strict on the enforcement around the neighborhood. We have done improvements to the backside of the Venetian pool parking lot for the staffing to allow for more staff parking there. And then we do allow for overflow parking during the peak times at Salvador Park when that's not being used. So we have some mitigated improvements to allow for that excessive parking. And we will continue to look at improvements for parking as we continue to deal with it.
It's also worth noting that the last couple of summers, we did have, because we were protecting the vaults, we did have some barricading around the perimeter. So whereas in previous years and that people could park all through the open space, we had really limited it. So it had limited the amount of spaces that were even being used there. There were still a few, but we started to mitigate that. And that's also, important to note. Carolina said we've reduced the capacity by 50%. That's not due to COVID. That was prior to COVID. We had already reduced the capacity greatly, and also taken a couple of other measures to reduce the amount of people that go to the pool in terms of raising the fees for non-residents and other things like that.
Right, the next comment, the design looks great. I'm looking forward to this improvement. So no question there. Another question, we live in one of the most botanically diverse locations in the US. I see no native plants in the plan other than the existing.
So for that one, part of the requirements for the Lamar Curry Trust was that we use a lot of flowering plants. We are happy to use natives. We coordinated that list with the garden club, but we've got orange and white Geiger on the list, dwarf firebush, and we're open to more suggestions as well. So if I think that's Dennis that sent that in. If you want to email us proposed plants, we will add those to the list. The landscape design has obviously not been fully completed. So if you have any plants that you would like us to try to incorporate, we're happy to add those to it. And we clearly can't put all of the plants that we had on there in that park. That would just be a potpourri of too many flowering plants. So we'll have to kind of pare that down to a manageable amount. So any suggestions are welcome. Please send those to us.
Also using wart fern quite a bit as well as an understory.
Next question and comment, you mentioned sand. I live a block from there and we have many feral cats, sadly. they use sand as a litter box?
Yeah, so when the sand areas in here are probably not going to be your traditional beach sand. We use a crushed oolite stone mix that kids love to dig in, but it's a little bit more stable, and the cats don't like to dig and use it as a litter box because we are aware of the issues with the cats. So, and if we do end up going with sand, there's sand in the Venetian pool too. I know you guys, the Parks Department deals with that on a regular basis. But in this particular area, we'll probably go with that fine crushed, it's a powdery, almost sand-like material, but the cats don't like to dig in it.
It's very similar. We do have a similar product over at Ingram Park, Breckbrook. So if anyone is familiar with that park, which is near the Cocoa Plum Circle, there are several areas that have this. It's not like a fine kitty litter box type sand. It is, and it's compacted, so it's not as conducive to that type of activity.
Brooke, I think is it also the same one that's in the bike racks right now in front of the Venetian pool?
Well, at Ingram Park and at the bike racks, we used a crushed pink granite, which is it's a slightly coarser, it's a little harder to dig in. In this location, we were going to use the native oolite, which we actually have on the south side of the Venetian pool. That's what we put in the swale area there, and we'll be top dressing that again soon because it's settled. But it's kind of in between the two. It's a little bit coarser than sand, but it's kids can dig in it, and keeps the cats from digging.
Next, another comment on the dogs. I'm all for the dogs as well. If fenced, it should be off leash. That brings the community together. Side note, I live facing the fountain, and we traffic calming or attracting people, and pets won't be safe with traffic calming, I'm assuming.
Okay.
All right, I'll go into the next question. Did you say this would be finished by year end?
2021, year end of 2021, not 2020.
And somebody just chimed in on the size. Park is 6,450 square feet.
Yeah, and that's the lot size, but the park is a little bit bigger because it incorporates part of the right of way.
Yes.
Another comment on dogs. Residents have wanted a dog park to walk to for some time now. Then there's less need for parking. It'd be great to enjoy both gardens and our dogs. Next, there is a huge amount of speeding around there. Can we address that? I've never seen speeding signs.
I don't, there has been kind of a little bit of a moratorium on signs in the city of putting up additional ones, which is maybe why there isn't one there. We can look at that. That's we'll ask the same questions as we already are of the streets, of our traffic staff, and they can maybe provide us some possible solutions for that. Once again, unfortunately for us, that it's a little bit outside of the scope of park design, but we understand that it's an adjacent issue to it. So we will talk to the traffic advisory folks and see what they can do to help on the speeding. If it's an area that already has documented speeding, then the traffic advisory committee and the public works staff that handles that should already be aware of it and should already know and have potential strategies for it.
I also feel that the development of the park into a fully landscaped space, taking it all the way out to the edges, is going to naturally kind of slow people down a little bit versus the way that it is now, where it's fairly open.
On the oolite, the question asked, is oolite what they use at Catalonia Park? If so, it is very hot.
At Catalonia Park, which is on the new park on the corner of Catalonia and Anderson Road, the columns at the gate entrances and the stone blocks that are rectangular in shape, those are cut oolite blocks. So yes, that's the same material as the columns that we're proposing at this park and the Oolite block benches. That park also has some cap rocks on the back corner of the park, which are smoother lower rocks. And we've used those in a number of parks. So just like any solid surface, if it's in direct sun, it will be hot during the day, but it's not nearly as hot as metal or even the recycled wood product gets in direct sunlight, because it's a natural stone product. If it was in reference to the crushed stone, we don't have any of the crushed Oolite stone at Catalonia Park that we have on the south side of the Venetian pool in the swale area. If people want to see what that looks like.
Again, just to reiterate, there's 7 benches shown on the plan as proposed, and only 2 of them are the Oolite benches near where the biggest planter box is for the garden club members, just to kind of, for the look of it. The other 5 benches are to be the standard park benches from the city.
Next comment is lignum vitae would be great. So this is a follow-up comment from the earlier question. Next question, Catalonia Park was supposed to take 3 months. It is almost 2 years and still problems.
Well, right now it's closed because of COVID-19 and the emergency orders. It has been ready to be opened since almost at the start of COVID is when we were able to open it. So, you know, that was a different park project, just for everyone to understand. We were doing 5 parks at one time, which was a large task. Not something that I will recommend to repeat again. It was something that we learned from. We did it to kind of maximize our resources and save funds. And but it was a difficult coordination. But in terms of, you know, we have 5 parks. They're all ready to be online as soon as the emergency orders from the county move to the next phase, and we're able to open our smaller parks and open our child play areas.
Going back to the traffic, the question asks, maybe some speed bumps can be installed. That would slow traffic. People do tend to go fast on DeSoto Boulevard.
So for traffic calming, Public Works has a website. If you go to the city website, Public Works Department, there is, I don't know the exact address off the top of my head, but there's a comprehensive citywide traffic calming webpage that the Public Works Department has. And there's all sorts of metrics and a whole plan for that. So that's outside of the park scope. And anyone that's interested in that can go to that website. And if you can't find it, just send us an email and then we can send you that link. We've had a series of public meetings about traffic calming, and the traffic calming is basically going from north to south through the city based on different criteria and parameters that the city and the county have worked on for a number of years now. So that is being currently implemented.
Next question. I understand you want to make this park a waiting room for the Venetian pool, but I'm not a fan of sand. Can you replace the sand with natives?
I think that the sand areas are that crushed Oolite stone, and that's basically used as a replacement for using, you know, concrete or rubberized surface. So it doubles as like a stable surface and something that kids can play in, and it gives it a softer garden-like feel.
But we can, yeah, we
I'm
can.
not sure with. Go ahead.
Sorry. We can always. It's a surfacing. It's not really a planting area. So we can change up the surfacing if that's an overwhelming sentiment. You know, we're, like I said, we're here for the input, and whatever is suggested, we will definitely look at that. You know, just so in terms of a waiting area for Venetian pool, you know, we don't anticipate, what we anticipate in terms of the pool traffic there will be, you know, there is a lot of cases where, you know, people show up to the pool without knowing the rules. And when they get there, they realize that, you know, children under the age of 3 are not allowed into the pool. And you get, you know, people that have come a long way with bigger groups of families. So then a parent or will stay with the younger child outside until, for the group to enjoy the pool and then come out. So in terms of that waiting room aspect, that's really the use that we see will probably occur there. Like I said, we've really lowered the capacity, so we don't have that humongous waiting room line concept that we had maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, with lines out the door. The line is there when we start, and then it's the capacity isn't too big, and we send everybody away. So they don't really hang around if they can't go back in the pool. And our no re-entry once we filled our capacity that policy has also helped. That people don't wait around now because they know that they're not going to be let in just when people leave.
Also, this is a similar size to the 5 neighborhood parks that we just completed: Catalonia, Mallorca, Venetia, Marlin, Sardo. It's that same size as those 5 parks. And those are neighborhood parks. So this will also serve as the neighborhood park. So it has a dual function of also serving the Venetian pool, but the Venetian pool is it's closed on Mondays, and it has shorter hours. So mornings, evenings, throughout the day, the neighborhood will be coming to use this, walking to it. So it's a unique that it has more functions than a lot of our other parks. It won't just.
We have had feedback from some area neighbors that tell me that they've always used that area and they're anxious to continue to use it, and they'd like to see it developed. So I think it will, as Brooke said, it will serve as a dual purpose. There will be some element that it will be used by Venetian pool. Most likely it'll be the element that I described at first, of the children that are very small and can't go in to the pool.
We have 3 questions left. Next question. Hi, I love the trees and flowers. I just wish there were more. Why can't you cut back $100,000 so the city doesn't spend all that extra money on some of the heavy features like the trellis and the light benches?
I don't foresee the budget being an issue as for the quantity and types of flowering plants and native plants. So we should be able to accommodate, fully planting as necessary, a good landscape layout and design with the plant material. So I don't foresee the hardscape elements preventing us from having a diverse and thoughtful flowering plant palette. So I think we'll be able to achieve that.
I think the second part of the question referred to more of the budget, asking like, why does the city have to spend an extra $100,000 besides what is already committed by the garden club for the larger aspects of the park? And
I think part of that was our city standards. We need to fence our parks when we improve them, especially when they're kind of geared towards smaller children on busy roads. So some of those, and it has some elements such as the dry riverbed for the Venetian park, the cleaning and the pumping the water out function. So there's some elements that are kind of infrastructure related that we need to do as a city that weren't necessarily intended as part of the donation from the garden club. So we're partnering with the garden club on this to achieve all of those different elements that a lot of other sites don't have those kind of challenges.
In terms of the actual elements, if there's, if everyone listening, if you have an issue with the trellis and you want to send us an email, let us know. What you do need to see at the trellis is you still need an entrance. So those 2 columns are going to be there with the entrance gate. It's just the stuff on the top. And we're not married to anything. Like we said, this is not a finalized design. It's a concept. If people are not fond of the trellis and they think it doesn't belong there, we're okay with that feedback, and we will take it. Some of the Ulite benches, to be honest, in terms of a budgetary item, it's a natural cut rock. It's not the most expensive. It's cheaper than the regular benches. But we don't, if we don't want to, as Michael said, that was just as a companion to the planters. If we don't want those there and we just want to keep the I think it's 5 benches because we had 7 total, 6 or 7 total. If we want to just keep the regular 4 or 5 benches and we don't want to put in the Oolite benches, it's not a problem with us. Let us know, write us an email, tell us, and if we have an overwhelming response to that, or we have at least a majority response to that, absolutely. And by the same token, if there's features that you really like and you want to keep in there, please let us know. We're okay with them. You can let us know now, or you can let us know in an email.
Yep, and I agree with what Ed said, and I know the Garden Club also requested a trellis, some sort of trellis structure or arbor structure to grow some flowering vines on, to give another plant type with flowering, but that could take a number of different shapes. And they also requested the raised planter beds with oolite stone, similar to a vegetable garden they had done over at the Merrick House before. So those were elements that the Garden Club had requested some form of that be in there, but those can be modified and changed, depending on feedback.
Okay.
I think, Brooke, you may also want to mention that the sidewalk along DeSoto really is not part of the park budget and is coming from, the city's general sidewalk improvements.
Yes,
Yes.
that's we have an ongoing sidewalk improvement budget that sidewalk is, and the crosswalks are being done out of that ongoing budget, not this specific park budget. That is correct.
I'm just going to skip to another question that refers to the Oolite benches, just to tie it into this last question. The Oolite benches have been used in other city parks as part of the nature play for kids to play on. So there's value there with those benches.
Yes, we agree.
Thank you.
Following question, tour buses travel around the Venetian pool various times of the day. We would like the city to make sure that the tour buses do not use the park as a resting location. They currently illegal stop on Toledo next to Venetian pool. Look into the Venetian. It's important that this park continues to serve the area residents.
You are absolutely correct. And it is something that we have noted. We've already done some things, limited access into the pool for the tour buses. And we've had to redirect them in certain roadways. So we will continue to enforce that. You're absolutely right. The size of the park isn't conducive to big groups to be in there anyway.
Another comment, actually, we have a group that walks with kids and dogs every night at around 5:30 to 6. We used to end up at Catalonia, but this is even closer and we are excited. Going back to the trellis, just remember kids climb on anything and everything, so make sure the trellis is not climbable.
Agreed.
And we have one more question. Who ultimately approves the final plan? Is it the Coral Gables Commission?
So we have a full plan. What we'd like to do is, if we're making substantial changes to the concept plan, then we'd like to somehow, we get the word back out to the community, either through email, or if it's a drastic change, we do another meeting. And then we do share the design plan with the commission, and they do have to approve on the construction of the contract. But the permit process goes through first. And if we have, if Jose or Brandon, if you can chime in as the project management team, the approval process.
I mean, it also we have 2 advisory boards. It goes to the Park Advisory Board for their feedback, the Landscape Beautification Advisory Board for their feedback, the Garden Club, since they're are providing funds, they'll provide their feedback, and then there's the public meetings for their feedback. So those are the kind of the input advisory components, and then I'll let Brandon take it there as far as like the finalization of the design.
Well, yes, of course, the park will go through our building department and is subject to, all of the normal zoning requirements and whatnot. But it's been designed so that there should be, very minimal input. It's been designed to accommodate those kind of comments. I think the question is more pertains to who will authorize the final approval of the design, which more or less is a collaborative effort. It's the whole group that you see that's participating in this meeting. But Fred, you do usually present the designs to the commission, so they have input as well. So there isn't a set entity that does the final approval.
Well, we do, yes, Brandon, what we do is we do present, I do present the design to the city manager and his team, and they do discuss it with the commission. In certain cases, depending on the type of project and the funding, the project may go to the commission on an agenda. It will eventually go to them for the construction contract as well. So there are a couple of opportunities, but they are aware of it and they do see the design prior to us finalizing and going to construction.
We have one more comment that was added. If it's like other Core Gables permits, the park could take years. It only took a year to get our historic building painted the exact same color as it has always been.
Well, we understand the frustration with timing sometimes. There are some things that go into sometimes delays. It could be all kinds of different things, supply chains, procurement issues, protests. There's a lot of delays. We understand the frustration. We try to be as expedient as we can, and sometimes it takes longer than we had anticipated. Sometimes we do get things done rather quickly, so we're hoping that this is going to be one of those times. But we do have a timetable. As I stated at the beginning of the presentation, we want to be completed with the entire process by the end of the year, next year. So that's our hope. And if we have a delay a little bit beyond that, we're hoping it wouldn't be very big.
All right, that completes our questions that we have in the chat.
So I do want to summarize, just so everyone listening understands what we're going to be looking at based on the input that we received here. There was discussion on dogs. Seemed to be a sentiment maybe towards making it pet friendly. I know we did get a comment or two of off leash, but I think due to the size, I think at least there could be a good compromise if we say pet friendly. So that's something that is going to be considered, and we'll await further commentary as we go. There was commentary on changing the trees and adding natives, so we're going to look at that, and we'll start incorporating that. There was some commentary and questions about the pedestrian access and traffic calming, maybe speed bumps. We will touch base with our streets crew. As we said, it's a little bit outside the scope of the park design, but we will let them know and see what kind of improvements can be made in that area. There seemed to be a little bit of commentary and some trepidation on the oolite, the crushed oolite. So if we'll await, if we seem to be getting a little bit more commentary on that, then we're going to look at what other possibilities there are for surfacing. Maybe you go to the crushed granite, which is even one step higher than the oolite, and it's a little harder to dig, but you won't get the cats in there. So we will definitely look at that. The other two big takeaways were making sure we put in as much landscaping as we can, looking at the oolite benches, whether those need to be removed. We did get someone that was positive. I think we had 1 or 2 against. We had one for. So we'll see as we get more feedback from the public. We'll look at that as well. And the last thing is the trellis, making sure that it's not easily climbable. And we'll await if there's more commentary on keeping it in there at all. I see we got another question.
Yeah, we had another comment come in on the benches, and the comment is, I'm for the benches, and it's for a tie.
All
Now
right,
you
so
know.
that's a 2-2. That's a 2-2. So, you know, right now we're hanging in there. So we'll see. We'll see what it is. You know, what's important is we look at an overwhelming sentiment, not even overwhelming, just a sentiment on certain features and certain things. We don't like to jump if on one comment or one person to say, do this. And then if that's not what we're receiving from the public as a whole, you know, it's very rare that we make that change unless that change is warranted for safety reasons, or maybe it's a cost engineering thing or something like that. But you know, when you get multiple comments like the dogs, those are the kind of things that we'll look at. Or you look at the sand. Those are the things that we will definitely look at and look at altering the design for, because that's what the public wants. So those are the things that we'll look at. We are open to see if anyone wants to write another comment or another question. We don't have any more. We'll start to wrap up. Do we see
Just as a
somebody?
reminder, when you registered, we asked for your email addresses. So we are able to, if there's any changes to the design that are done following the input process, we'd be happy to email everybody that's on this virtual meeting the modifications to the design.
And what's important, if you know of neighbors or community members that weren't able to come to this meeting, let them know this meeting is recorded. Let them know to come onto our website, and they'll be able to get all the information on the plan. The presentation will be on there. And there's an email, parksprojects@coralgables.com, that they can send us their input. And you can send us additional input as well. I see we got one more question.
Not a question, a commentary, just thanking everybody for their time this evening. And we are excited to see the park redeveloped. So are we.
So are we. It's great that our excitement is met by other people's excitement. So we're very happy about that. Carolina, are we clear, or do we still have one more?
Nope, we have answered all the questions and read out all the commentary. And again, we did this for full transparency. So everybody was able to comment, and, you know, we appreciate everybody's input in this meeting. And, you know, we always normally have these in person. So I think attendance wise, we did pretty well. We had some great participation. We had 25 participants outside of the staff that participate here as a panel. So we really, really want to thank you for taking your time to join us this evening.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. And I think we got another comment. Something else popped up.
Yeah. So another comment, I personally know everyone around the park, every family has a dog. So this is again about the dogs.
Hey, we hear you. We hear you. And that's what this input meeting is for. To hear you and what the interests are and the needs are of the community. Like I said, that's going to be the big consideration of looking towards a more of a dog-friendly area. So if that's it, if we don't have anyone else, I think we got one more.
We have one more dog comment. I have a dog. I keep them at home. We don't need more noise.
So that's an against dogs.
But
That's
it's
an
a dog owner against dogs outside in the park.
Oh, okay. All right. All righty. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We do want to thank you for taking part in this process. Without you guys, you know, we can't get this done and have it be a true community space. So thank you so much. And on behalf of everybody on our city team, thank you to them for them being here with us. And we'll be awaiting any emails and other comments, and we'll get to work on them when we get them. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you.